Hi everyone, and welcome to Voice of Geekdom. This is the latest video in a continuing series which examines the text of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. You can find a link to the entire playlist in the description. Don't forget to leave this video a like to help the channel out, and leave your comments and questions for me below. Last time, we were introduced to Tulkas, the final Valar to enter Arda, and learnt about the ill-fated Age of the Lamps. We then heard about how Melkor destroyed the lamps, and how, in the carnage, the Valar were forced to relocate to the holy realm of Valinor, in the continent of Aman, there creating their City of Light, illuminating it with the two trees. This week we will be hearing more about Aulë, the smith, chief architect of the lamps of Middle-earth, and Yavanna, lady of the wide earth and creator of the two trees of Valinor. We get probably more interpersonal dialogue between the Valar in this chapter than at any other point in the book. The Valar, in the main part of the story, are subtle agents rather than formative active characters. The opening chapters, before the mass population of Middle-earth, give us the only significant peek behind the curtain, and this chapter is a huge data point in terms of analysing their interactions with one another. Aulë and Yavanna are an intriguing coupling, given their individual aspects. It is impossible not to think of the major theme, seen throughout Tolkien's works, of the conflict between industry and the natural world when considering these two. That they, of all the Valar, should be considered an item romantically perhaps proves the mantra that opposites attract. That is not to say that they are openly competing with one another, but we will see here that they have very different priorities. You may recall that, in covering the Valar Quenta, we remarked upon the explicit comparison made between Aulë and Melkor. Both have the desire to create. In this chapter, that connection between the personalities of Aulë and Melkor will come under the microscope once again. But we should find out what happens. Aulë has grown restless in waiting for the awakening of the children of Ilúvatar. The vision which was shown to him in the beginning of time has grown dimmer in his mind and in the minds of all the Valar, and Aulë greatly desires the coming of elves and men so that he can experience the joy of teaching his lore and his crafts to them. He creates the 7 fathers of the Dwarven race in secret, fearing the potential reprisal. And when his task is finished, Ilúvatar, knowing everything that happens in the universe, confronts him and says to him, "Why hast thou done this? Why dost thou attempt a thing which thou knowest is beyond thy power and thy authority? For thou hast from me as a gift thy own being only, and no more." You will remember from the opening prologue that Melkor had searched the void for the flame imperishable, in his jealous desire to create things of his own design. What Ilúvatar is saying here is that without that secret fire, Aulë's task in creating the dwarves is an impossible one. Ilúvatar continues, "Therefore the creatures of thy hand and mind can live only by that being, moving when thou thinkest to move them, and if thy thought be elsewhere, standing idle. Is that thy desire?" Ilúvatar's rhetorical question here is intended to ascertain Aulë's intent in the creation of the dwarves. What he is saying is that without his secret fire, which is innate in him and in him only, the beings which Aulë has created would be mere automatons that depended entirely upon his will. No one can create sapient life without it being part of the will of the Creator. Ilúvatar gets the exact response that he was looking for from Aulë. "I did not desire such lordship. I desired things other than I am, to love and to teach them, so that they too might perceive the beauty of Ea, which thou hast caused to be." Aulë's contrition and humility have done him credit in the eyes of Ilúvatar, and set him apart from Melkor, whose motives are more selfish and methods more destructive. But Aulë is about to make a very interesting counter-argument to his creator. "In my impatience I have fallen into folly. Yet the making of things is in my heart from my own making by thee. And the child of little understanding that makes a play of the deeds of his father may do so without thought of mockery, but because he is the son of his father. As the Valar each embody different aspects of Ilúvatar's mind, Aule makes the very reasonable argument that his creativity is derived from the manner of his own creation, and that his very nature necessitates that he follows his creator's example. One wonders what Melkor's answer might have been if he were to have been challenged with the same question. Melkor's own attempts at subcreation will later be described as exactly this: mockery, and we will have the opportunity then to compare and contrast these two approaches. Aule then offers his dwarven children to Ilúvatar to do with as he pleases, and, as he does so, prepares to smite them with his hammer and destroy all of his work. But Ilúvatar has already taken compassion on him and decides to imbue the dwarves with the fire of creation. Even as the smith lifts the hammer to strike, the dwarves cower in fear and beg for mercy. Their reaction to him is independent of Aule's thought. And Ilúvatar says to Aule, "Thy offer I accepted even as it was made. Dost thou not see that these things have now a life of their own, and speak with their own voices?" Ilúvatar then lays down his terms. The dwarves must not awaken in Middle-earth before the firstborn elves do, no matter how long that may take. They will be Aule's own children. And he states here that strife will often arise between the dwarves and the other races, presumably as a result of their separateness. We all know and recognise from later history that the dwarves will often be at odds with the elves in particular. Eru does not quite disown the creation of the dwarves, but he clearly puts the larger share of the responsibility onto Aule's shoulders here. The text then goes on to state that, as the dwarves were created during the time of Melkor's greatest strength, Aule deliberately made them strong to endure, which explains their dense physiques and comparatively long life. There is also an interesting aside here about the theological beliefs of the dwarves and the contradictory lore of the elves regarding the dwarvish afterlife. The dwarves themselves believe that, when they die, their souls are gathered to a special, separate section of the Halls of Mandos, and that there they wait until the last battle at the end of time to help Aule with rebuilding the world. This is a very appropriately Norse concept, which is similar to the myth of Ragnarok. We know of the real-world myth of Ragnarok primarily from the 13th century texts, the Poetic Edda and Prose Edda, two texts which we know that Tolkien was fascinated with on an academic level, and mined for material extensively in the Legendarium. But as we said, the elves, on the other hand, have other ideas. They believe that when the dwarves die, they simply return to the ground from whence they came, becoming part of the earth. The text lets us draw out our own conclusions. Aule returns to his spouse, Yavanna, and tells her everything that had happened, and she is not impressed with her husband. Yavanna gives very little outward sign, at least, of any feelings of betrayal towards her husband for keeping such an enormous secret from her. A queen of the Valar has greater responsibilities, and we shouldn't allow ourselves to analyse these characters as if they have ordinary human concerns. Her priorities are her creations, the plant life and wildlife of Arda. And so she says to him,
"Eru is merciful. Now I see that thy heart rejoiceth, as indeed it may, for thou hast received not only forgiveness, but bounty. Yet, because thou hidest this thought from me until its achievement, thy children will have little love for the things of my love."
Yavanna is rightfully concerned that, with the creation of the dwarves made in Aule's own image, they would need wood to fuel their furnaces. And then Aule counters that the dwarves would not be alone in that. Even elves and men would need wood for their fires and food in their bellies as well. This is not a comforting thought for Yavanna. She goes before Manwë at the summit of Taniquetil and asks him whether what Aule had said was true of the children of Ilúvatar, despairing for her creations. When Manwë answers yes, it is true, Ilúvatar's children would have the dominion over all the earth, She tells him of the fears that she has for her creations, and Manwë is not deaf to her pleas, eventually asking her, "If thou hadst thy will, what wouldst thou reserve? Of all thy realm, what dost thou hold dearest?"
All have their worth, and each contributes to the worth of the others. But the Kelvar can flee or defend themselves, whereas the Olvar that grow cannot. And among these I hold trees dear. Long in the growing, swift shall they be in the felling, and unless they pay toll with fruit upon what little mourned in their passing. So I see in my thought, would that the trees might speak on behalf of all things that have roots and punish those that wrong them.
The word Kelvar here is clearly meant to be roughly equivalent to fauna, and Olvar equivalent to flora. Fans of The Lord of the Rings will probably be able to see roughly where this exchange about speaking trees is headed. Manwë answers her, "This is a strange thought."
Yet it was in the song. For while thou wert in the heavens, and with Ulmo built the clouds and poured out the rains, I lifted up the branches of great trees to receive them, and some sang to Ilúvatar amid the wind and the rain.
Another reference to the music of the Ainur. The power of music is another major theme in Tolkien's Legendarium, one which we've seen already in our story several examples of. We saw how the themes to the music were devised by Ilúvatar in the beginning of time, taught to the Ainur and then recited by them. We saw the creation of the two trees through Yavanna's Song of Power. We have heard of the echo of the music existing still in the oceans and waters of Arda, and the influence that this holds over the hearts of the children of Ilúvatar. We will later see this theme repeated again during the Beren and Luthien story in the Silmarillion, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention the whimsical songster Tom Bombadil of The Lord of the Rings fame in this list. It seems that Manwë had forgotten parts of the song that were still clear in the mind of Yavanna, but her words stirred the music in him again, and the vision of Ilúvatar was renewed in his mind. Manwë's role, remember, we were explicitly told in the Valar Quenta, was to interpret the thoughts of Ilúvatar. When he awakens from the vision, he descends the mountain and joins Yavanna beneath the two trees, sitting down next to her, and there he quotes for her the revelation that Eru has given him. "When the children awake, then the thought of Yavanna will awake also, and it will summon spirits from afar, and they will go among the Kelvar and the Olvar, and some will dwell therein and be held in reverence, and their just anger shall be feared, for a time, whilst the firstborn are in their power, and while the secondborn are young." In addition to the Ents and Huorns, who are surely the aforementioned tree spirits, we get a clear indication here of many other spirits who would inhabit the world. There is no description of the taxonomical nature of these spirits. They could be equivalent to something like the Maiar, but the text is not entirely clear on this point. But they are there in waiting and will awaken when the world is ready for population. Manwë continues his speech, this time in his own words. "But dost thou not now remember, Kementari, that thy thoughts sang not always alone? Did not thy thought and mine meet also, so that we took wing together like great birds that soar above the clouds? That also shall come to be by the heed of Ilúvatar, and before the children awake there shall go forth with wings like the wind the eagles of the lords of the west." Manwë now remembers the part of the music where he and Yavanna collaborated to create the Great Eagles. Lord of the Rings readers and even Peter Jackson movie fans will remember the eagles. Tolkien's term for all of these sapient creatures, we know from his extended writings, was rational incarnates. Rational meaning able to use reason, and incarnate meaning that they have a physical, tangible form. For context, the Ainur in their pure form are not incarnates, but they are able to change their shape in most cases. Many creatures in Middle-earth seem capable of rational thought, In addition to the elves, men, dwarves and eagles, we get many reports of talking beasts and the people that have the ability to talk to them. Yavanna is pleased with everything she has heard and returns to Aulë with her news.
Eru is bountiful. Now let thy children beware, for there shall walk a power in the forest whose wrath they will arouse at their peril.
Nonetheless, they will have need of wood, said Aulë, and he went on with his smith work. Next time, we will learn about the awakening of the elves, and the Valar will finally catch up with Melkor. Thank you for watching Voice of Geekdom. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and leave me some feedback in the comments below. You can help the channel to grow by sharing this on your social media sites or sending this video to a friend whom you think might enjoy it. And if you'd like to experience more content like this, hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to enable notifications, which helps you to stay up to date with my latest uploads.